gonna kill us.
The filibuster is on.
Oh, has 8:30 been said? That seems like a jinx.
I don't know. Who said it?
I
Was
ran
it
with
just
the
now?
8:30.
Oh.
He
No.
knocked.
Okay.
I actually confidently said I would think
It
possibly
could
even
happen.
8.
Yeah.
But at 8:30 is being my conservative
I'm
self.
always hopeful.
I always underestimate, and so I just.
I will
never
admit,
predict
no
it.
questions, one question plus other questions kind of put me in a good,
Yeah.
in a good boat. So we'll see. I'll try not to screw it up myself.
I forgot my notebook. And
Yes!
I don't have something to
Even
write on, then
I thought it was your
can't-
notebook of questions. I'm sorry.
Oh no, those are all up here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Saved to our hard drive.
It's on a
Hi.
9.5 hours of Zoom with Pelsby kind of put me punchier
Look at
than
your
usual.
haircut.
Look at this.
Are you serious?
It looks great.
You'll have to,
I also cut my
type in
own
and
hair.
chat.
Okay, what do we need to do?
Doesn't look anywhere near as nice as
Where
hers.
Dr. Daniels needs to talk, they'll
I
just
dye
type
my
in
own hair
chat.
too.
Okay.
Really?
And
Okay.
got Nadia's hair, I'm out of control with
Okay.
this pandemic.
Will you tell them that they are basically on mute until
That's
they type in
amazing.
and tell us otherwise?
All right.
It's all you two.
Well, I will.
Paula,
What?
your
I will
haircut
certainly
looks
tell
much nicer
them.
than mine.
I haven't cut
I
mine since
suppose the other
December.
challenge would be if Lucy
You can learn
and Naomi
anything
want
on
to
YouTube.
speak,
Yep.
colored.
we need to
How's your
communicate that
baby?
with them as
She's
well.
great.
She home with you?
My husband's staying home, and then I kind of like work from home partially and in the office partially. So
The clock literally just turned 7 as I saw it. Are people just about ready? Do you need a second?
Do we expect Peter to be
Okay.
present?
No,
He
he
is
is not
not.
going to be here.
be earlier. Never mind.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
Find the
I
filter.
should wait for them.
Okay.
I forgot about that part. Are you all about ready to roll?
How
Aaron?
you doing, Aaron?
Okay.
You go to practice on this? Okay. If I had a hammer. They heard me say 8:30 and they're gonna push it.
This is how a good plan falls apart.
That's right.
I knew I shouldn't have asked.
So
It's
we've
my
got
own fault.
Lucy in the
We were all
meeting.
thinking it.
Here we go. Lucy is here. I do not have the ability to text her, so can you email Lucy? Oh, I suppose.
Just put it in the chat of the Google Meet.
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you want me to count down?
It's World Teachers Day.
Okay. We're
It is?
letting Lucy know about the
Oh.
mute situation.
Do we know
Oh, wait
that?
for Cassandra to finish typing. What?
Do we know that today's World Teachers Day?
I did not. Every day is a different day. I can't keep track.
I know, or a month.
You should bring that up at the end in the information and questions. We can celebrate.
World's Teacher Day.
Google told me.
Okay.
Huh.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Is everybody just about ready?
Yeah.
It is 7:01 p.m. on Monday, October 5th, 2020, and I call to order this regular meeting of the Richfield School Board. Attending this evening's board meeting are board members Tim Paulus, Christine Malik, Allegra Smishak, and Paula Cole, and I am Crystal Brackey. Board member Peter Tensing is unable to attend this evening. We are thrilled to be joined by one of our student board members, Lucy Luna, and it's possible that Naomi Ferguson will be joining us online as well. We have Superintendent Yanowski with us in the boardroom and several district staff members participating virtually this evening. Richfield Public Schools' mission statement is that we strive to inspire and empower each individual to learn, grow, and excel, and we will keep that at the center of our discussions this evening. We also want to welcome those of you watching this meeting live or in the future on YouTube. You will see that those of us who are here in person are practicing social distancing and complying with the statewide mask order. Though the executive order does allow for the removal of masks while speaking during public meetings subject to the open meeting law, such as this one, I am going to continue wearing my mask, and we strongly encourage others to do the same. If our masks make it difficult to hear, please consider utilizing the closed caption button in the lower right-hand corner of the YouTube screen, as it likely will help make it easier to follow our conversation. With that, our first item of business this evening is to approve the agenda before us. And there is one small change to the agenda this evening, which is to remove the closed session at the end of the meeting. And instead, we will tentatively plan to hold a closed session at the end of our next meeting instead. Is anyone prepared to move the agenda as amended?
I will move the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Malik and a second by Ms. Cole. Any final discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye. The agenda is approved, and we'll just welcome Naomi Ferguson, our second student board representative, to the virtual meeting as well. Hey, Naomi, we're excited to have you with us.
Craig is suggesting he cannot hear on the internet,
Okay,
so just as an FYI.
thank you. I'm going to keep rolling for
Yeah.
now. Okay. So we now move into the information and proposals non-action items section of the agenda. And before turning things over to the superintendent for his updates this evening, just want to make sure that I shared our next opportunity for public comment will be at our board meeting on Monday, October 19th. So over to Superintendent Yanowski for 2 presentations.
Yes, and just as a quick technology update, I'm not sure those watching or participating on the computer are able to hear us at the moment. If you are not, you can hear on the live stream. And so I know that the live stream is coming through with sound, but I'm not sure if the Google Meet that we are participating on is. So live stream is an additional option. All right, so yes, I can do that.
Or it's right behind you if you would
Yes.
actually be willing to just turn around
That
and do it
would be
right there.
wonderful.
That would be great. Thank you.
So with that, well, we're sort of muddling our way through a small technology issue, and Director Cole is typing into the chat that people are able to watch the live stream. I will ask Ms. Klom to forward us to our October update. And the October update is the first of our presentations, and it's just a brief update on where we stand. As we talked about last meeting, we were talking about the launch of school and where things were beginning. And so I'm going to present today to bring us up to speed. Starting with the pandemic status update. And so on the next slide, we have seen some advances in the Hennepin County case rate. And so Hennepin County case rate back in August had been in the low 20s. It consistently went down, and then we saw a small jump back up. So it went from 14.5 last week to 18.7 per 10,000 residents of Hennepin County. Doing a little quickie Steve math, I would say 14 and 22 combined for an average of 18, give or take. And so I would also anticipate a week from now that we would also see a relatively similar step forward. And that's important to note because we are still operating hybrid and the distance option, which distance will be available. And so just to remind us, under 20 does allow for a full in-person program at elementary, but we have not moved that direction, nor are we really considering that at this time. But hybrid at elementary is allowable all the way up into 50 cases per 10,000 residents of Hennepin County. The next change of program would be considered at 30 cases per 10,000, and that is something to look at for secondary, depending on what happens in terms of cases. The other thing to note is as we collaborate and partner and talk with other public schools, we're seeing a shift of schools moving actually towards more in-person and an increase of hybrid offerings. So there are schools that have announced full openings of K-12 after the MEA break on October 19th, and there are others that are just shifting some students into more of an in-person model from their hybrid at this time. In regard to how this impacts Richfield Public Schools, currently as we look at our enrollment, and our enrollment really impacts our ability to provide in-person amounts of models or hybrid that includes larger amounts of in-person programming. We're currently sitting at 79 students above projection, and that is not the official October 1 count. This is the, we'll call it the unofficial October 1 count. And so this is our team working together prior to the official count that's taken by the state of Minnesota. to take that overall look at how are we doing in terms of overall enrollment. Of that, it is now sort of equalized out at about 40% of our students enrolled in full-time distance learning, which is up about 1 or 2% from last time when we met. And then class sizes at grades 3 to 5 can allow some flexibility in regard to our hybrid model. And so if you recall, we have launched our program at K2 4 days per week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. What we're doing is we are evolving our hybrid model. And so this isn't about creating an in-person program, but it's about creating a program as we learn more about the needs of our students and the needs of our staff that meets their needs more effectively. So what we're looking at on October 19th is bringing our 3-5 students in, the same as our K2 students. So our K5 programming would be 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And it really supports those requests of our students and families. And also it's proving extremely challenging in our initial hybrid model to meet the needs of kids effectively in person at the same time as you are over the internet. And so this is helping our staff in a way to better meet the needs of our students. As we do talk about that, we really have been focused on improvements to our instruction. And so we have been providing on-the-job professional development for staff, but at the end of this month or the start of November, we actually have a couple of professional development days to continue taking those steps forward. And our biggest focus is on distance teaching, because as we know, our teachers are very experienced in providing in-person instruction, and we want to just keep improving our work in regard to distance teaching. We've also really been trying to tighten up in terms of platform improvements and make sure that all of our teachers, but also all of our families, are trained in utilizing and accessing Synergy and accessing Schoology and all the platforms that they would need to have their students be successful. And so we're really pushing and continuing to push for supports to students and families. As part of that, we also have done textbook distributions, specifically at the secondary level, and have done some at the elementary level, working to get books in the hands of kids to support their coursework, so everything isn't necessarily done in a virtual or in an online fashion. We also have been working to create some improved systems in regards to substitutes and substitute teachers. And so we've created some training and some documents to make sure that all subs are trained in our safety protocols. And so once they arrive, or if they arrive for the first time, they're trained and oriented in the safety protocols of each school, because of the intricacies of each school or each job, there are different requirements from a safety perspective, depending on where they are. And as we are learning from this model, we're learning some things that can actually help us in subs long-term, because as you know, it can be very hard to find subs in this current job market or in any job market. And so one of the things we've learned is that even though teachers could be quarantined, some of them are not actually sick. And so if a teacher is quarantined and well enough to teach live stream, they are able to teach into their class and stream into their class while they're supervised by a paraprofessional or another staff member to help support that. We also can have distance teachers with pre-planned absences where they can create asynchronous lessons in a 1 or 2 day situation. And so while it's not ideal to have taped lessons that are all taped lessons for students to receive, one of the things that we can do is have them pre-taped lessons for planned absences so that if there is no sub, they're still able to get the education that we're hoping for them to have during that particular day. The other thing that's been exciting in the last couple of weeks is we found some ways to celebrate, some very creative new ways. And so I want to, well, there will be a commendation of Lori Siebert and the high school team for their really exceptional work in planning and implementing a homecoming parade. So we had a driving parade on September 26th, all through Richfield, passing by all of the schools. There was a coronation of Richfield royalty on October 1st. All Richfield High School students got free homecoming t-shirts, and then we also had 2 weeks of sporting events, including the boys soccer team winning the conference championship and taking the Trax trophy from that vaunted partner and rival, Holy Angels. So it was a very exciting game and very exciting homecoming set of events. And then this week is Walking and Biking Week, and it couldn't be more apropos as we are noting that one of the things that has helped us bring our 3rd through 5th graders in is that a lot of our students, that a lot of our families are finding different ways to get to school. And so we have, despite some reservations on our bus, a large number of students that are actually choosing to walk, that are choosing to bike, or getting driven to school. We do have conferences coming up, October 12th to the 14th, and then the MEA Education Conference from the 14th to the 16th. So a couple of days of professional development at the end of next week. So that's a pretty quick summary of the things happening in school and the things that we had over the last couple weeks. And so with that, I'll just pause and see if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you. Open it up.
I just have a question about the substitutes. You'd mentioned some of the protocols for folks coming in, but do we have a sense, I imagine the use of substitutes is down compared to normal?
Yes. So the biggest, one of the benefits of COVID, if you could call
We're
it a
grasping,
benefit,
but yeah.
is that we've transitioned a large amount of education to flexibility of online instruction. And so teachers who are out for a planned absence can create not just lesson plans, but can actually tape themselves and can implement that. And so we not only have subs down, we have teacher absences significantly down also.
Thanks.
Can you talk a little bit about what's shifting in the system to allow for third to fifth grade to come 4 days a week?
Sure. So the first piece would be 40% of our students choosing to be online the entire time. And so we had approximately, if we think back to August, we were thinking it was going to be about 30%. And so that has ticked up to about 40%. That's the first piece. The second piece is, as it is broken down, we have most of our class sizes in a range that we're able to actually get them into our building, 50% capacity and still remaining social distanced. And so that was pretty exciting. And then the other component that we were very surprised by is there is a pretty large number of families who had requested transportation who had not used them. And so we are finding we also have space on our buses. So the students we didn't think we could get to school are able to get to school. We didn't think we could fit them in class, but now we are able to fit them in class. And so just as some of those data have come in actual students rather than just conversation, we found that we do have that space and that capacity.
Great. Thank you.
It's harder to tell if somebody's getting ready to talk when you can't see their mouth. So feel free to just jump right on in if there is something that you want to say.
Nope, I'm good.
I think my only question, it was actually just related to the sort of walking, biking, other forms of transportation outside of our own buses. And one of the difficult decisions that we made, a month, 2 months ago was to change some of our busing policies in order to make sure that we could transport students and doing away with some of those crossings that previously had qualified someone for busing through us. So how are our new approaches to safe crossings going? And maybe it's a timely question given that it is that week coming up.
Absolutely. We have had patrols out supporting our students in walking. It is, I would say, generally successful. There are a couple of cases where we have had to work to find some additional resources to support some families who struggled to get their children to school. And so we have worked with Director of Student Support Services, Christina Gonzalez, and arranged special transportation under extenuating circumstances for families for whom that created a hardship that was a barrier to being able to attend. And so that has been an added resource that she has been able to, or that we as a district have been able to grab. And then the other thing I would comment in that area is that as we continue to evolve and learn about each of the numbers, when things transfer from theoretical numbers to actual numbers, I would say the next step would then be examining, can we accommodate more students on buses after we take this next step?
And this announcement is for our 2 student board members, Naomi and Lucy in particular, who we think / hope can hear us through the YouTube version, even though it means that they cannot directly speak. So Naomi and Lucy, if you have questions or comments that you want to share, you can chat them into the Google Meets and we will see them pop up, and we'll try to make sure that we actually catch them and can still hear what you want to share, and apologize for the tech challenges tonight. Okay, so I think it's okay to move on to the next subject, but we'll come back as we need to, as questions arise.
All right, so I will be flexible. So as things show up in the chat, if there are things that come in regard to this presentation or previous from any of those watching, I will jump into those. The other item on our agenda today is just to provide a brief strategic plan update. And we had talked about the process entering the summer. We had talked about the process all throughout the spring, but I want to remind us of where we were and give a quick update on where we are. So, as we look back to now all the way to December 2019, we really did our work in regard to strategic planning, launching out a review of our old strategic plan and looking at our strategic plan measures. Then we created an outline of our new plan, integrating our branding messages. We had planned on meetings from January to March 2020, but something with a -19 got a little bit in the way. So we hosted large monthly meetings to gather input from our stakeholders, and then all of our committees had ongoing input and ongoing review of our strategic plan. In May, what we did is we took the draft that we had come up with from all of that input and surveyed the community to ascertain priorities to help sort of create some new goals. But then, because COVID and changing and some of the significant things happening in our community caused us to take a step back, we wanted to bring things back and gather some additional input before launching. And that was a conversation we had in the board in early summer. And so we began this August in our management team, as we brought management team back at the start of August, and really wanted to revise and review our draft with an equity lens, and looking at are all of the things that have happened in our community, and are all of the things in regard to equity and anti-racism, are they integrated into the draft, and do we have things that align to our values into the draft? What we also didn't get to do is bring it back to all members of our community, and gather that additional lens of input once we had a really substantial draft. We did that, but that was all online, and it was in some pretty asynchronous formats, survey methodologies. And so as we look to next steps, over the next couple of months, we're going to begin starting by gathering some feedback from administration and staff and try to craft it into a tighter draft as we continue to move things forward. And then in November, really making a push to get feedback from students, families, and community. And so that means taking it out to all of our committees, all of our advisories, to student government, to our Safe and Supportive Schools group, really getting that next level of input, and then taking December to revise and finalize the plan. If need be, having that trickle a little bit into January, where we would then launch and communicate our new strategic plan. And then February through basically prior to the launch of next year, creating our vision cards aligned to that plan so that we can have that clear measurement, clear communication, and really be able to communicate out not only the things that are in our strategic plan, but how are we doing and how are we analyzing through data? Are we successful, and where do we need to make those next steps of focus? So that was just a brief update on where we are in the process, and updating that for you. The next big dates, and we wanted to really start with virtual community meetings. Sort of that kickoff of the community having that input on Thursday, the 22nd, and that would be a virtual meeting hosted by myself and team members from the district. And then coming back Tuesday, November 17th. And so really taking those large community meetings like we had done before, but then also in between those having committee meetings and having those smaller group meetings to gather input. So with that, I will pause and open it up again for questions or comments.
Thank you. Any things people would like to ask or share?
I have two. One is a question and one is maybe an idea to consider. So the question first is just in this timeline of next steps, where you think there should be points for board engagement along the way. And then I think the potential ideas related to the virtual community meetings, and wondering if there is a way to sort of, again, do the synchronous, asynchronous approach and potentially have a recorded version that people could watch and react to on their own time if they are not able to make a live gathering.
So 2 questions there. Board touch points. One, board members are all in committees, and so board members would have an individual opportunity to participate in that part. And then I see this coming back at least twice to the board publicly. And I think you and I should probably talk offline whether both of those are in December, or one is in December and one is mid-November
Okay.
in regard to that.
Sounds good.
And then the second question, what I think I heard you say is you really liked my narrated PowerPoints from when we were all virtual, and you'd really like me to create one that people can read and watch for our strategic plan and participate whether they're in large group meetings or not. So I would be happy to oblige in that. You can tell that people are laughing even under a mask. So yes, we will make sure that there are synchronous, live, and asynchronous taped versions that people can participate in.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, then we will move to some wonderful commendations this evening.
All right, and I will have Cassandra show the pictures as I read these commendations. So Richfield Public Schools, and this one comes from Christina Gonzalez, would like to thank former Centennial Principal Leanne Wise for building and donating desks for RPS students. And Cassandra, can you go to the next slide? Perfect. It's a giant photo. For students to use at home for distance learning. Attached is a photo of Leanne dropping off the first desk at a student's home. A second desk will also be going to a middle school student soon. Leanne and her spouse have also offered more desks and are likely going to partner with the high school in service learning projects. Thank you to Leanne and her family for supporting RPS students during these unusual times. Leanne Wise has always been not only an award-winning principal, but a truly spectacular community leader and somebody who is an amazing part of the community. And so I want to thank Leanne Wise and commend her for her ongoing work. Thank you, Principal Wise. Second, Richfield Public Schools would also like to thank Richfield High School teacher Lori Siebert for her hard work in coordinating the high school homecoming parade and other homecoming activities. Lori is a parent of 3 students at Sheridan Hills, as well as a math teacher at Richfield High School. Attached is a photo of Lori with the gift bag she helped to personally distribute to the students on the homecoming court. Lori's enthusiastic efforts allowed the homecoming parade to take place safely and successfully on Saturday, September 26th. Her efforts provided a great opportunity for students to celebrate in the midst of these challenging times. Thank you, Lori. We are truly proud of your Spartan spirit. I'm very proud of Lori and very pleased with all those extra efforts she did to make it extra special for our kids.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda containing routine business items. I'll pause for just a moment to see if there are any questions or requests before we could proceed with a motion to approve. Seeing none, I think we're free to have a motion.
I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion by Mr. Paulus and a second by Ms. Malik. Any final discussion?
Yeah.
All those in person, please say aye.
Aye.
Or sorry, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The chair votes aye. The consent agenda is approved, and we move into old business. There are 3 items of old business before us this evening, all of which are board policies that we are reviewing for a third and potentially final time this evening. The first of which is disability non-discrimination.
All right, so 3 policies, and this is the third read, so I am recommending we move this towards passage. We have had multiple sets of feedback from board members. It is the disability non-discrimination policy specific to adults, and this is a practice, and again, as part of our overall systemic work, is bringing some of the guidelines and procedures of Richfield Public Schools out in this way, allows us to make sure that there's that systemic oversight of the ongoing non-discrimination and non-discrimination policy and practices in Richfield schools. So with that, I turn it to you.
Okay. As Superintendent Yanowski mentioned, this is the third time we've seen this one, so are there any final comments or questions before we could entertain a motion? Seeing none, is there anyone willing to move that we approve this policy as presented?
I will move that we approve the disability non-discrimination policy as presented.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Malik and a second by Ms. Smishek. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the policy is approved. The second one this evening is school district system accountability. And while this is the third read of the policy, we do not anticipate recommending passage this evening, as there's still more feedback to be collected and incorporated. So, Superintendent Yanowski.
Yes, absolutely. And so this is one where we thought we might be ready for passage, but I'm actually not recommending that at this particular meeting. We have continued to have ongoing input to make this we'll call it a Richfieldized policy. The MSBA policy is very large and very broad, and so we have continued to add language. And so you'll see in this particular draft, general statement of policy, integrating some Richfield-specific pieces around our strategic plan, adding things specific to our goals, which we could also add with our new strategic plan. On page 4, really laying out what we're doing in terms of really trying to create diversity and multiple voices within our advisory committees, and then also a list of the current advisory committees within the district. And so we just continue to do work to integrate Richfield-specific language into this draft. So what we want the board to do is look at that, give some additional feedback, and hopefully at our next meeting move this forward for passage.
Any questions or comments with that context?
I just note that we've listed out sort of the advisory committees in their current form, and I was actually okay with not listing them. I've seen different things where, you know, as long as we have the statements broad enough, there are times in the future where that can be almost a hindrance if we're too anchored in the existing slate of committees. And so while it's okay, I don't mind that we list them. I just want to make sure that the description of it is suitably broad to allow expansion beyond whatever the current committee is charged with.
Agreed.
Got it?
Any other comments? Okay, we will move on to the third old business policy this evening on public data requests.
Yes, and so this again is a pretty clean procedure coming to the board to create that as an oversight from a policy perspective. And so this is just how do we act and how do we respond when public data requests occur. So we are bringing this back to the board if there is any feedback or input.
And yes, this is one that has been quite straightforward the entire time, and so I think there is general comfort passing it this evening unless there are final concerns that have come up in the last 2 weeks. All right, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve policy 716 for public data requests.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Cole and a second by Ms. Malik. Any final discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the policy is approved. So we have a couple of new business items before us this evening for the first time. The first is a proposed new policy defining our approach to equity as a district. So I will let the superintendent introduce this.
Yes, so I am proud to share with you the first draft of an equity policy. And as a district that very clearly in our strategic plan and very clearly in our goals states outright that we are committed to all students and ensuring that every single student within our school district is able to achieve equity. And this is only done through deliberate action and deliberate statements, specific anti-racist based activities and specific actions that support all students. We believe it's time to move forward with a policy that makes this very clear from a board level, which also then creates a systemic oversight commitment publicly for you as a board, for me as an administrator, and helps send that message to everybody within our organization. And so really this policy is just sort of planting our flag in the ground to say that all students in Richfield deserve and will be given an opportunity to thrive academically and developmentally, and to make sure that our outcomes are not predictable by race, culture, socioeconomic status, language, gender, ethnicity, or any other demographic characteristic. It helps with some definitions, and then really states what our commitments are in regard to focusing on student strengths and embedding social emotional learning, transforming our learning environments to support all of our students, and to continue to research, develop, and add new practices to make sure that we are achieving outstanding outcomes alongside of all of our students. Talks about shared responsibilities, how all of us have a part to play in this, and how all of us need to step forward together. So no one person carries any of this weight, but all of us carry this weight together. And so I am proud of the work that our team has done to gather voice. It actually started as a conversation several years ago, but Ms. Quam actually went out and studied equity policies from other districts, brought them back for us to research together, and we began crafting this, gathering input from board members, gathering initial input from people outside the board, and are happy to present this tonight. We do anticipate, much like our nutrition policy and guidelines, which took, I believe, about 6 months to go through, that this isn't one of those 3-read policies that's going to be 3 meetings. We believe there's substantial input and voice to happen, substantial input and voice from often underserved, underheard, or marginalized communities, but making sure that we hear from everybody as we create a policy that basically states we are a district that is and will be about serving the success of everybody. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Crystal.
Thank you.
For questions or
I think
comments?
very helpful and well said, and again, appreciate the work that has gone into just getting the first draft of this to us. So, questions or comments that people would like to share, again, knowing this is the first read and there is much more work to come.
I just appreciate it as a starting point and understand that the real work and the input from the community and you know, everyone who will be impacted is yet to come, and will be invaluable and critical to having it be meaningful for us. I also like too, I mean, there's aspects of it where we have bits and pieces of this scattered throughout our policies, and gathering them all in one place intentionally is helpful, as you had said, Steve, to the to sending the message with more clarity.
Yeah, I think it's very clear and concise, and I, too, am excited to see the student and community input that we will get following up on this. So.
Any comments from this side of the table? Okay. It sounds like we are all unanimous in our excitement, support, and the realization that we need to make sure we're doing this thoughtfully. And especially, like you said, proactively seeking out perspectives that we might not otherwise hear. So thank you for that. We move next to the designation of an identified official with authority for education identity access management, a real mouthful.
Spectacular and exciting, yes. So on a yearly basis, we basically just need to bring it to the board, which allows us to delegate the responsibility to Angela Marin, who is essentially allowed to then go on the MDE computer and assign different roles, tasks, and responsibilities to leadership within the organization. So that could actually be me, that could be Dr. Daniels, but it is delegated to Angela, who has done this for multiple years, and essentially just gives us permission as signers, doing a lot of the logistics behind the scenes on the MDA access site.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the designation?
So moved.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Paulus and a second by Ms. Malik. Any final discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye. The designation is approved. And last but certainly not least, we will recognize donations made to the district since our last board meeting.
All right, so I am recommending that the board accept the following donations with gratitude. Richfield Public Schools received a donation of 250 thermometers from Assistance League of Minneapolis-St. Paul. Thank you to the Assistance League. Richfield Public Schools received a donation of 100 thermometers from Park Nicollet Foundation, so thank you to Park Nicollet Foundation. The Richfield Public Schools General Fund received a regular donation of $25 through Give Minnesota from Michelle Burnside of Richfield. Thank you, Michelle Burnside. And Richfield Public Schools General Fund received a regular donation of $10 through Give Minnesota from Lisa Ferrara of Freehold, New Jersey. Thank you, Lisa Ferrara.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the donations?
I move we approve the donations with gratitude.
A second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Malik and a second by Ms. Cole. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the donations are accepted with gratitude. So we move next into the advanced planning section of the agenda, beginning with the legislative update that I know Superintendent Yanowski is going to share, also on behalf of Peter Tensing, who is unable to be here this evening.
Yes, so I've got a very long update to give.
Okay.
No. Dr. Tensinghead and I attended the AMSD conversation, and there's been an MDE finance work group of which I have been a part of that has really looked at innovative ways to fund schools to sort of make up for the fact that there are large cross subsidies, that it might not be equitable, the funding mechanisms. And so there is a significant proposal. What makes this unique is it was tasked by the Commissioner of Education. It was supported by Tom Melcher, who is sort of the budget guru of the state of Minnesota. And so there's just a wide range of proposals that will go to the legislature next year in regard to special ed cross subsidy, general ed funding, changing the weight of referendum on communities, and just a wide range of other conversations. And so that's something to be looking for as we move to the legislative session when we get to January. And in the meanwhile, there may end up being a special session as they look to the executive orders and the state of emergency. And so we also talked about the likelihood that they will call people in for a special session in the coming weeks. That is really all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you. We can transition into any other information and or questions members of the board would like to share with each other or the public.
So I spent 7 years teaching, and today I found out that October 5th is World Teachers Day as designated by UNESCO. So, I mean, I love that there's a Teacher Day. So to our teachers in Richfield and those teachers at home supporting our students as they're distance learning, a big shout out and thank you for your dedication to children everywhere.
Very well said. Any other items?
I'll follow up. Last meeting, we talked about the committees and the advisory committees and the, what seemed like them being in furlough while we tried to get up and running for regular time. They've been kind of on hold since with last spring's abrupt shutdown. And so all of my advisory committees seem to have roared back to life and have October meetings scheduled. So
Fantastic.
and I know it had nothing to do with our inquiry, but it just coincided.
And those meetings are being used for strategic planning, and obviously we'll begin to roll out dialogue around equity policy.
Let me see if there's anything else.
If Ms. Malik isn't going to bring it up, I will say it. So we have sports rolling out, and so
sorry.
obviously there are some pretty significant challenges for us to figure out. So we have now approved a football season and a volleyball season, and they are approving winter sports, which are then indoors from the Minnesota State High School League. And so there are some pretty significant challenges at this time. The high school league's rules are significantly more lax, I would say, than ours are. And so, for example, in volleyball, which is completely indoors, the only time students are expected to wear masks are during an actual game. And so we're going to need to figure out between basketball and some of the other sports coming up, how do we logistically want to handle that? And so, while that isn't a specific board policy necessarily, although we do have a masking policy, that is some logistics that we'll be bringing back to talk about at this level, because we're not going to leave our new activities director, Jared Ellerson, out on his own in this. And so we're going to give him some board and superintendent guidance to sort of help out with this process.
Yeah.
But it's definitely going to be challenging.
And to that end, to also appreciate Jared and the entire activities team, I did attend part of the championship soccer game last week. I could not last too long because it was really chilly that night and I was not dressed for the weather. But it was very impressive to see, first of all, the number of people who came out to support the team that night, but that every person was masked. That there were people at the gate ensuring that all of the rules and requirements were followed. And I very much felt like people in the stands were respecting distance and sort of, in clusters that felt appropriate from what I could tell. So big credit to the activities team for making that feel like a safe and supportive and really celebratory experience for our soccer team and for all of the fans. Okay, our next meeting will be on Monday, October 19th at 7 p.m. and it will start with public comment. And then, are there any suggested or future agenda items that people would like to add? Okay, as noted earlier when we amended the agenda, we no longer have the closed session, so we can move right into our final item of business to adjourn. And so I will officially adjourn the meeting as chair at 7:42 p.m. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you again on October 19th. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
I'll come more often so you can go home.
Nice.
No, it was just a short and swift agenda. Oh,
Yeah.
and I didn't do that. I always forget at the end. I don't think it actually matters.
So I missed it way back at the consent agenda. Who did the motion and who did the second?
I can figure that
it was
out,
me.
actually.
You did which one?
I think it
I
was,
distracted by
I
the
think I moved the
technology
consent
stuff.
agenda
I
and
think it
hung out
was
for a
Tim
while.
motioned and
Christine
Christine
felt pity.
seconded.